there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all well. This week something completely different from the normal stuff on the channel. I'm going to show you guys how to make a raised panelled door. Now I've made loads of these raised panelled doors for customers in the past, and people really get confused of what the router bits are for, because there's 3 different router bits that you use, but once you get your head around what the bits are for, it's not as complicated as it sounds. So that's what I'm going to go through as well. We're going to make it out of some 18mm MDF. The reason being is because obviously this is going to be thrown away at the end of it. I didn't want to waste the money on decent material to make the door, so I thought I've got loads of offcuts of 18mm MDF, so we'll make it out of that, and then the door can be bunged away at the end of the day. So what I'll do is I will move the camera, then we'll go through the router bits, and we'll be able to see exactly what bit does what, and then we'll go through the process of working out our calculations for the length of the rails we need, and the top and bottom rails, and the size of the panel, so we can get those all cut to size. So then that'll be a case of cutting the joints, making sure everything fit together dry, and then gluing it all together and clamping it. So let's get on with looking at the router bits. So this is a selection of bits I bought, I don't know, must be years ago now. It's only a cheap set I got off of eBay, but it's really served me well, and it's done everything I've asked it to do really. But in this set there's also bits in here to make drawers and that as well. So, but the main bits we need is these 3 bits here. Now these two confuse people of exactly where they go and when you use them. So this bit here is for cutting the ends of your top and bottom rail, and then this bit is used then for cutting the long rail, which they all clip into. So the easiest way to work it out is this is for tongue and this is for groove. Now if you can remember that, you've virtually cracked it. And then this piece here obviously is for cutting the shape of your raised panel. Now it looks complicated, but it's not, so we'll go through it step by step, and then hopefully you guys will have a bit of reference to know exactly what you've got to do. So what we'll do now is we'll work out, we'll move these to one side, we'll work out, you can tell how long ago it was used, but look how dusty it is. So we'll work out what material sizes we need. So when you're using these pieces, this, obviously where there's an indent here on the bearing, that's going to be your tongue. So between there, if you measure between there and there, that's going to be the depth your tongue is going to be. Now I know that from there to there is about 10mm. So obviously we've got one each end of that, so we need to add 20mm to our overall length. Right, so to work out what we need to cut our pieces to, these pieces are 500mm long. I'm going to make the door, I always cut my side rails slightly longer than what I need. So if I was making a 500mm door, I would cut them out of like 550. The reason being is once it's easier to assemble, you haven't got to get everything perfectly lined up. Then once everything is dried and cured, you can go along and just cut your rails to length to get your oversize, your finished size for your door, or yeah, your raised panel. So let's imagine this is 550. So if I was making a door 500mm long, by 400mm or 300 by 460 wide, oops, 460, then these are 80mm wide, so obviously that means this bit here we've got to take our 160mm off of it. So these centre panels are going to be 300, but we need to allow for the panel, or the tongue, sorry, to go inside the frame like that. So like we said, we know that with this router bit, between here and the bearing is 10mm, so we need to plus 20mm for 10 millimeters each side, so that gives us a total of 320. So we need to cut our top and bottom rails at 320. So T plus B rail 320. So that's the length we want for that. So obviously the sides we're going to cut for a 500mm door. I would normally cut at 550. And then our centre panel, obviously we know the width already is going to be 320, so width 320, and then our overall height, again we've got 80 from 500, which is 360, no 340, sorry, and then our 20 millimeters to go, or 10 millimeters to go in either end, that's another 20 minutes, so that's 360. So our centre panel needs to be 320 by 360, and there's our cut list. So what we'll do now is we'll cut these to size, the top and bottom rails. Obviously the side rails are the length they're going to be anyway, and the centre panel, and then we'll move over to the router table to get the joints cut. So all our bits are cut now, so we're ready to start doing our first ends, or our first cuts on the router table. Now I'm going to do these ends first to the stay bars. The reason being is that's the ones I always do, because it's always the easiest thing to cut first and they're the most delicate. So I'm going to get the router table set up, and then we'll start cutting. So this is my Kreg router table, really good router table. I've had this now 7-8 years, and it's really good. It's got, don't know if you can see on the table, but it's got like a little micro dot system, so things just sort of glide over it really well. And what I've got fitted to it is the Axminster lifting gear to obviously move it up and down, which is a real great benefit to the table. It's great because it comes with these rails to fix guides or whatever you want to it. We've got a measuring guide at the back here with our flip dead stop, which we can move up and down as much as we want. And it's also got, I'll just move the camera a little bit on here, it's got a micro dialing system. So what you can do is, if you want to move it back, say 10mm, you just clamp it, wind it back so it says 10 millimeters, and then move it, and you've got your perfect depth, which is absolutely great. Admittedly, this was an extra, and we'll just move it back up, and this was an extra, but for the money they are really worth having. It's got good extraction on it. It's got a 2-inch extraction port on it, which I've increased to 4-inch, and I just turned a adapter out of nylon so we can connect our 4-inch, so I can connect my chipper to it, which gives it loads of extraction. And like I say, really good router table, really good router table. It's on a trolley. I believe the wheel kit was extra as well, and like I say, it's a nice piece of kit. So anyway, we've got our piece in there ready to go. Now this doesn't, when you buy the table, it doesn't come with a router attached to it. I had my trend router, 1/2-inch router, connected to this, but with all the dirt and dust going down inside it, I was a bit concerned it was going to knock the bearing out. So what I did is I went and bought a Screwfix own 1/2-inch router, 2100 watt router, which has been on there ever since the day I put it on, 5 years, maybe a bit more, and it's still working sweet. So that's worked really well. The other thing I did, I put on an NVR switch, so the router's plugged into the NVR switch, and then that has got an extension lead on it, which then plugs into your 240. Again, safety is important, so that's why I've done that. Right, so that's enough about the router table. I'll put links for the router table in the description if anybody's interested. Go and check them out. Like I say, really good table. You'll go a long way to get a competitive price table like this. I know they're from the States and they take a little while to get here, but I believe there's companies in the UK selling them now. So like I say, really good table. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set this up to do our ends. So obviously we need to move the table or the rest forward to line up with our centre bearing, because that's going to be our pivot point. And then what we need to do is set it for our height. So I'll get a screwdriver because I need to slide this way. So I'll get a Phillips screwdriver to move that over, and then we'll come back and I'll move the camera so you get a better look. Right, so I've adjusted this now. So we want this rest to line up with the back, with the centre of our bearing. So we just need to move this forward enough so it's just touching on that bearing. So got no rocking, and when you move it the bearing's moving, so that's perfect there. So we'll lock that table into place. Actually we've got a little bit of movement there, so I'm just going to bring that forward a little tiny bit. Perfect. So we've locked on the end, and what the Kreg has got, it's got a thumb or a thumb screw this side as well, just to lock this end in place as well, so we can lock both ends of the guide in place so it's not going to move. Now just double check that. That is perfect. That will do me to the ground. So now we need to set a height. So what I would like to do is set this bit here so it's just cutting through to the top of this. So what I want to do is I want to wind this down. Just move this out of the way. I want to wind this down so the edge of this cutting blade is just roughly the height of this bit here. Just like that. So what it's going to do is it's going to put a recess in this piece here, and that will give us our button up joint for when we push into our other piece. That's the plan. So now what we need to do is obviously run it through and cut it, but what I'm going to do first, I'm going to do it on a test piece. The reason being is I want to make sure it's the right height before I put the actual piece through, because I don't want to, because obviously we cut these to size now, I don't want to ruin them. So I'm going to connect all the extraction up, and then we'll put a test piece through. Right, even though I'm going to have dust extraction going, because it's MDF, I'm going to be wearing a mask and obviously my ear defenders, so things may be a bit quiet for a little bit. Right, so as you can see there, we're a little bit too low. Yeah, we're definitely too low. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that up so that's halfway through that panel, because we've lost all our edge on here, because this is only 18mm, normally these are for like an inch thick. So turn off the router and move up. And we'll try again. Right, as you can see, that is much better. We've done it so we're only perhaps 4mm in here now, so that will put that maybe better. See, so this is going to be button up against our other panel, and then we've got a little bit of a groove in there where our other panel is going to butt into that. So that's the ends set up, and what we'll do now is we will cut all the four ends on our top and bottom rail, and then we can change the bit over to change to the sides. So I'll do that. Talk amongst yourselves. So that's all our ends cut now. So what we need to do now is change over a bit and set up for the long edge for our tongue or our panel to fit into. So we'll move all this out of the way. Wind up the table so we can get to it. Unplug the router. Make sure the router's unplugged before you attempt to change bits, because you don't want to be losing your fingers, that's for sure. So again, exactly the same principle as before, but this time the bearing's on the top here. This has still got the wax on it. So the bearing's on the top of this one, so obviously we need to line up through the back there. So again, bring that in, and we're going to line that up with our fence like so. So lock it down, just double check it, make sure everything's fine. So that's lined up now. Now what we need to do is just make sure nothing's going to catch, which it's not. And now we need to line this up with this. So obviously we know our tongue's in the middle, so now this is going to be our groove. So what we need to do is line this up with our groove. So that's roughly in line where we want it now. I'm just going to put a test piece through again to just check it, because again we don't want to mess up our original pieces. So again we'll get our test piece out, and I'll just run a test piece through it, and then we'll check it on one of the ends we've cut, and if it's working well then we know we've got it. If not, we can remove it and we haven't ruined our proper pieces. So I'll get my mask on, get the extraction on, and we'll give it a test. So I've not gone too far with the test. So we'll get our other piece and put it in, and there we go, we've got a perfect joint. So if you can see that, can you? Got a perfect joint there. So that is working really well. So we've got that set up spot on. Both are fairly flush. Obviously with MDF there's a little bit of variance in the thickness of the board. So, but that's nothing that can't be sanded out once everything's dried up and glued. So what we've got to do now is we've got to do one side of the top and bottom, and then we've got to do one side of the side rails. So we'll run those through, but you need to remember which way you need to have it, obviously, because you don't want to be cutting it the wrong way. So the way to always remember is if you have your good side down, the side you're going to, the outside of the door, say the good side of the door, always facing down onto your table. That should then always come right. And the other way to remember it is, obviously we've set that up to be in line with our tongue. So we always want this rebate upwards. So it's good face down, this rebate upwards, and it should always work out right then. So hopefully. So there we have all our sides done. Now these should go in with them, which gives us a nice tight joint. as you can see, nice tight joint. A little bit of variation on there, but I would imagine if we tried the other one in, that would be different again, because like I say, MDF is always a little bit, yeah, a little bit of difference again, because obviously your timbers, but once it's all dried you can obviously sand out any slight imperfections and get it right. So that's our rails done, our top and bottom and side rails done. So now it's time to move on to the raised panel. So again, that's the big chunky piece. So what I'm going to do is I'll get these cleared up, and then we'll change the piece, and then we'll come back and work out how we're going to do the panel. So I've got a big piece in now. Now you can alter this on height depending on how you want the profile on the front panel. Now I always try and set it so it's just off the deck here, but if you want it low, obviously you could take this ring out, you could take the ring out and lower it down, but I like it so you've got a bit of a step of a profile. So when this is going to be upside down, so bear in mind, so you got your panel like that. Now you can have it so if you do it so that gently swoops in like that by lowering it down, but what I like to do is if I've got my panel, I like to have a bit of a step as a definition and then it curving in to the panel. That's how I personally like it, but some people like it so there's no square edge like that, but I personally like that. It gives you a definition between the edge and the centre panel. But again, it's individual preference. You can move, at the end of the day you can always start off with this way, and if you don't like it you can raise up the piece and do a second pass. That's not a problem, is it? So this is how I've set it. So we've got a bit of a prominent step there, and that's how I wanted to do it. So what we'll do is we'll run this through again. We're going to put a test piece through first and see what we think. If we need to, we can change it. So as you can see here, we're not quite deep enough. So what we need to do is we need to drop this down. So this bit cuts completely out. So what I might do is I might move that down so it's just touching on the top of that plate. So there's our panel. We could lose a bit of this if we wanted to. I'm just going to try it in one of these pieces and see how. It's not too bad, to be honest. It's a little bit high, but as you can see it fits in quite well. So I think we're going to leave it at that, to be perfectly honest. Again, it's only for demonstration purposes, and like I said all along, you can alter it if you want to. So what we're going to do now is we'll get our centre panel and we'll do all the four sides on the centre panel, and then we can dry fit it, see if it fits together. It's going to be a bit dusty because we've got such a big opening here. The extraction's not drawn all the dust out of it, so it may get a little bit dusty. So we've got all our bits, top and bottom rail, side rails, and our raised panel. As you can see, nice and trendy looking. I'll move this camera up a little bit so you can see a little bit better. That's a bit better. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to dry fit it before we glue it up. So we'll put one side rail in to start with. Obviously you're going to have to go over some of the bits with a little bit of sandpaper just to clean them up, but nothing major. So we'll get these bits put together. Like I say, we'll just dry fit it, make sure everything's looking sweet. So far so good. Look at that. Woohoo! So once that's clamped up, we've got a little bit of a a little bit of a gap there, but I think once it's clamped up we may be able to get away with that. It might be that the panel's a little bit, oh no, the panel's not too tight in there, a little bit of movement in the panel, so it might be that, yeah, it's just a little bit of difference in the gap. Like I say, nothing that a bit of glue and a bit of sawdust won't sort out. So as you can see, get down so you can see. You can see we've got our joints. We've got a little bit of a gap there. Why that is I do not know. It might be a case that because they're only cheap bits there might be a little bit of difference in depth. But like I say, nothing that we can't sort with a little bit of glue and a little bit of sort. See, that side's okay. It might have been my own mistake. I might have not quite had it pushed tight against the bearing. But again, it's, you know, I mean, it's not a major issue. And again, this is just for demonstration. So not too bad. So we've got our raised panel in, which looks quite nice. But I think once, I mean, these gaps, I think once we get it clamped up, these will disappear. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over to the bench, and now we've got it dry fitted, we'll get it over to the bench and we'll get it glued up, and we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. Like I said at the beginning, if I was making a proper door I'd make the rails longer, so you've got perhaps an inch hanging over, or maybe a bit more if you want a bit more. So what you can do is once that's dry you can then just run a saw through here or just finish your overall length up. But like I say, this is for demonstration purposes, so should look okay. So I'll get cleared up and move over to the bench, and then we'll come back and glue up. So before I put the table away, I thought I'd quickly show you the table as it stands with the legs. Like I said, I think it comes, I think you have to pay extra for the roller kit, but this I put on. This was from my other mini little router table I had, and it's great because, like I say, because it's got a router on it, you don't have to try and reach over and turn the router on. You just turn it on and off here, and all that's got is a plug, 13 amp plug on it that you plug the router into, and then this plugs into a 240 socket. So that then gives you the flexibility to move it about. So no, it works really well. Like I say, good table. Link will be in the description below for it. And then I just made this drawer, basically just to hold all my router bits, any tools I need, and bits for the router table. So works really well. Good table. We've done our dry fit. We know everything fits okay. I personally don't glue the raised panel in. The reason being is MDF's not a problem. Again, this is only for demonstration purposes. If you're making an MDF door, then yes, I most probably would glue it in. But if it's timber that expands and contracts all the time, then I wouldn't personally glue this raised panel in. I'd just glue the frame because it's not going to go anywhere. And the trouble is, if you glue it in and the wood shrinks when you take it into the house, it may crack the side rails, or if you've made your raised panel out of 2 pieces or 3 pieces, it may crack where the glue joints are. So like I say, if I was doing a timber one, I wouldn't normally glue the raised panel in. So I'm not going to glue this one in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue on the joints, and then just put it all together and clamp it up, leave it overnight, and then we'll come back to it in the morning and see what it looks like. Hopefully should look pretty cool. Plenty of glue in the joints because it will squeeze out what it doesn't want, and because we've got that little bit of a gap, it'll fill that up as well. So I mean, you can, a lot of people will glue the male and the female, which you can do if you want to, it's not a problem, but I think for this, basically, it's not really worth it. Not for this demonstration anyway. Again, remember, if I was doing a normal door, these rails would be longer, so it doesn't really matter about getting them in line as long as the door is square. So I'm just going to clamp these up with some sash clamps. So that's the panel all made up. What we'll do is we'll leave it till the morning, and then we'll come back, give it a quick sand over, and then we'll see what it looks like. But this has had about 12 hours to dry now. Glue's normally gone off within 4 or 5 hours, but I've left it till this morning. So we'll put the clamps away and give it sanding. So, like we said yesterday, these joints are not quite perfect. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly rub over it with the sander. I've only got a 120 grit sanding pad, so it's nothing major, just to clean these up really, and we'll see how it comes out. So, don't forget when you're sanding, your mask and your ear defenders. Well, here's our raised panel door, all finished, all sanded down, sanded all the joints down, and to be honest, you can hardly see the joints. They have come out really well. I was a little bit concerned in the video that there was going to be a bit of a gap there, but once we got the glue in and pulled them up, they came out really well. We had a little bit of height difference, but nothing major, perhaps half a mil. So I've sanded all that down now, it's all sanded and all finished really, and the back looks pretty tidy, so yes, looking good. Obviously this would be, if we was going to keep this MDF, we would prime and top coat this door. Either two ways. That can either be rolled or hand painted, should I say, or it can be sprayed. I may keep this door, and if anybody's interested in me showing how to undercoat and top coat an MDF door so you can get a nice finish, then leave me some messages in the comments, and if there's enough people want it, then I'll do a video on how to prime or undercoat and top coat an MDF door. The issue you have, if it's just a flat door with no routing in it or no pattern in it, it's not too bad because you've got that waterproof finished machine edge. But if you've got a door like this where you've got a routed edge, you get the fluffy line. Now you need to treat that before you can get a good finish on it. So they're the sort of things that I want to try, and the tips and tricks on how to finish those edges is what I'm getting at. So if people want to see it, leave me a message in the comments, and if there's enough on it, then I'll do it. So I'll keep hold of the door for the time being. But like I said in the video, if this was a timber door, I would not have glued this panel in. I'd leave it floating because it's not going to go anywhere, and it gives the actual door chance to expand and contract. I've learned the lesson the hard way, because when I first used to make them, I used to glue everything together, and I had a couple of doors where when you put them in a house and they contract a little bit, then they crack because the glue's not going to give. It's always a weak part of the wood that gives. So I've learned the hard way, so I'm just trying to pass on my little bit of experience. So anyway guys, I appreciate everybody who stayed to the end of the video. I know this is a long, lengthy video, but as you can understand, there's a lot of information in this video. It's quite a lengthy, well, it's not a lengthy process, it's just a process that you need to understand to do it. So if you've made it to the end, then thank you very much for staying, and I hope you've really enjoyed the video. So anyway guys, that's this week's video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, then smash that like and share button. Other than that, have a great weekend. Take care. Speak to you soon. And bye for now. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for making it to the end. There may be a couple of videos down below that you might be interested in. If you do, pop over and check them out. Also, if you're a subscriber to the channel, then thank you very much for your continuous support. And if you're not a subscriber to the channel, then pop over and click this link here to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to hit the bell notification to be notified for all my latest uploads. So anyway guys, take care, speak to you soon.